Do we all have our cups? We have to have cups,
I
right?
do. Well, I don't know if I told Jackie that you needed a cup.
I'll grab my cup. It's right outside.
Okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Birding with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension's Cup Chat this morning. Dr. Jackie has disappeared in hunts of her cup. But joining us today are special guests, Dr. Scott McWilliams and Dr. Jackie Grace. And we're thrilled to have them join us. And they are both part of our virtual birding seminar portion of Birding the Border. So if you can't make it to Birding the Border, we are going to discuss how you can still be involved in our Birding the Border program. But everyone is so excited to share their cups this morning, as always. So unfortunately, I'm still drinking out of my England mug from Starbucks. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but my sister travels a lot for work, and she sends me a Starbucks location mug everywhere we go. So I am still drinking out of England. I haven't really swapped it up this year. So Dr. McWilliams, I know you're excited to share your cup.
Yeah, so I have an owl cup, and I'm a huge garage sale person. So this came from some garage sale somewhere. I do have a brother and sister that travel a lot, but they never send me mugs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm kind of wondering now, though, where has that mug been? Because if it came from a garage sale, I mean, maybe it lived its whole life in one house, but maybe it's been around the world. So you never know.
Yeah,
that is neat. Well, and that's funny that I have to say that it's interesting that you're a garage person, Dr. Scott McWilliams. I don't know that I've ever been, but maybe to 2 or 3 garage sales in my life. So are you like a garage sale hunter, like every weekend? Or just in your spare time?
It's kind of seasonal, but yeah, starting about now, it's mostly an every weekend kind of thing. Not like we spend the whole day, but my wife and I like to start the morning with our cup of coffee, travel mug, and go around and check them out. And this, I'm calling you from Rhode Island, and around here, there's a big tradition in that, and there's a lot of kind of cool things, old stuff that you can really find, including mugs like this that have owls on them.
Well, that's neat. Thinking about all the, one person's trash is another person's treasure, and just all those kind of unique things that you could find. Dr. Grace, what's your cup look like this morning?
Mine is a bird mom cup. It says mama bird is what it says.
And we can see your baby bird right there.
Yes, and there's just water in it in case she probably will be drinking it, so don't think I'm giving her coffee.
No judgments here. 0 judgments. So
that's funny. Well, Emily, we better let everybody introduce where they're from and what they do, since now we've probably gotten everybody going, hey, we got somebody from Rhode Island on here. So
yeah, absolutely.
So Dr. McWilliams, if you want to go ahead and share, actually, let me share how this came together a little bit. So education seminars are a big part of what we do in Extension. And so for Birding the Border, that's no different. And Emily and I quickly learned after the first time we did Birding the Border, when we were just one tiny little group, that it was not a good idea to run everybody around all day long and not give them a break in the afternoon, because it gets hot and everybody had been up early, maybe was a little bit tired of us. And so we wanted to do something educational in the afternoon during the heat of the day. And so we started doing our seminars during that time, which is pretty typical for other festivals. That's everybody who runs a bird festival out there is like, of course, you take a break in the middle of the day.
We were just crazy and wanted to bird all day.
Exactly. We were just crazy and super enthusiastic about our local birds. But so for this year, for Birding the Border getting bigger, last year, as everybody knows, we had to do all of our seminars virtual when everything got shut down. But this year we have 2 in-person speakers. So those of you who are joining us Cup Chat that won't be here for Birding the Border, you are missing out on Dr. Clint Bull and Matt Reedy talking about raptors. But hopefully, we'll have them around again. And if you come to a future Birding the Border, we may have them as guests on Cup Chat as well. For this year, for Saturday, we wanted to have Dr. McWilliams and Dr. Grace come and talk a little bit about, I think your talks do end up being related. It started with Emily telling me that
it's my idea, everyone out there, just know.
She wanted to talk about nutrition.
Presentation. It's mine.
She said she wanted to talk about nutrition and she wanted me to find that person. And so thankfully I got to hear a webinar that Dr. McWilliams did for the Wildlife Society, and found him that way. And then we've actually tried to get Dr. Grace on last year. Y'all that watched our virtual seminars know that the awesome talk by Veridiana, that was one of Dr. Grace's graduate students. And so we're glad to have Dr. Grace herself joining us this year. So I'll stop talking and let y'all go. Dr. McWilliams, do you want to give us just a little bit about who you are and what you do with birds specifically?
And Dr. McWilliams, I will say there is a lot of pressure for you to be the best because you were my idea. Just
I'll try not to let you down. Yeah, so I grew up in the Great Lakes, thought I lived on the ocean till I was about 2 years old, in Cleveland, Ohio. And we had a farm down in the central part of the state. And we were surrounded by Amish farmers. And so the first set of birds that I learned was actually from my Amish friends and neighbors. And they had entirely different names for most of the birds that we had. They were named mostly based on what kinds of things they did, where they lived, and that kind of thing. But I was always fascinated by the changes in the seasons and the birds that went with it. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I went to college. I went to a small liberal arts school in Ohio called Hiram College, but they had a really great field biology program. And I figured out that I could do science and actually be in the field, which was the two things that I really knew I liked to do at that age. And so finished up there, traveled all over the world as part of that program. And then ended up going to Iowa State for my master's, and then UC Davis for my University of California, Davis for my PhD, and then did a postdoc at University of Wisconsin at Madison. And for the first time ever, my wife and I moved to the East Coast and got a job at University of Rhode Island and been here ever since. So our research program is studying the nutrition, ecology, physiology of migratory birds at large. We don't care what size they are, where they go. We're interested in interesting birds that migrate, and understanding sort of how they are able to do those amazing athletic feats that we call migration.
So you went from what you thought was the ocean growing up, and then you hit the West Coast Ocean, and now you're on the East Coast Ocean. So you've been all over on the oceans. That's pretty cool.
Do you prefer the West Coast or the East Coast? I've never been to the East Coast. It's on my bucket list. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah. So I can't say I prefer either one. I do like being around water. We have ocean kayaks and canoes, and so we're out a lot. So having water nearby would be important. And maybe that comes from being on the Great Lakes when I was a kid and growing up. But yeah, doesn't matter which body of water.
Hey, Emily,
we'll find him on water when he retires.
Water somewhere, yes.
If we need Dr. McWilliams when he has checked out of the world of email, we'll just search every body of water.
There you go.
And so Dr. McWilliams actually gave me an idea for a future cup chat, but I am going to pass it along next to Dr. Grace because her little one is being so good, and I know that doesn't always last. So
It's not going to last. She also likes to chat while I'm chatting on Zoom now, so she may start screeching during this.
Fine. She just wants to have her say too.
That's right. Yeah, she has lots of opinions about bird-related things. Yeah, she's been on a lot of Zoom calls. Let's see if she'll play on the ground. Yeah, so I grew up kind of similar story minus the Amish and in a different part of the world. I also grew up close to oceans, on ocean, close to the Pacific. So I grew up in Hawaii and lived there till I was 18. And then I went to a small liberal arts college also. Went to Willamette University on the West Coast in Oregon. And it's the oldest college in the West, as its little claim to fame. And yeah, they also had a great ornithologist there who was doing a lot of field biology programs. And he really got me into field biology. So I'd also always loved watching birds. I'd never been a big birder, but I really enjoyed bird behavior and really enjoyed their interactions. We had a peacock harem that would roam wild in our streets at home. And so it was always fun watching them. So yeah, when I got to undergrad, I started working with Dave Craig, who was the ornithologist at Willamette, and doing Caspian tern stuff. So I got into Caspian tern behavior and started out in the seabird world, and really focused on behavior at that point. And then went to do my PhD at did my PhD at Wake Forest University in North Carolina. And there I worked with Dave Anderson, who works with Nazca boobies. So I was working in the Galapagos Islands, also still with seabirds. And that started to get me into physiology a little bit more. I got interested in the mechanisms underlying the behaviors that I was seeing, and especially in developmental effects, and how social interactions when you were young were affecting your adult physiology and behavior. So after that, after I finished my PhD, I went over to France for a while doing my postdoc in a tiny little research center in the middle of a forest, kind of like the Kansas of France. But there I got more into physiology and the interactions between ecology and physiology in birds. And then I got hired as an assistant professor here at Texas A&M. So that's where I am now at Texas A&M, for the former Wildlife and Fisheries Science Department, and currently Ecology and Conservation Biology. And my lab studies how birds respond to stressors in their environment. So we look at a whole bunch of different types of birds. I've moved more into passerines recently and a little bit away from seabirds, although I still have a soft place in my heart for seabirds. But yeah, and we look at all sorts of different stressors, mostly things that are human-induced, but also natural stressors in their environments, and how birds respond behaviorally and in terms of physiology.
Terns are one of my very favorites. Sorry, I just by doing my dissertation on Great Salt Lake, there were terns that would breed there, and they just have so much character. I just think they're great. So sorry, Dr. McWilliams.
Well, I was just going to do one of these geek out things that scientists do. So do you, since you were working with Dave Anderson, did you happen to run across Martina Mueller?
Yep. We overlapped by only about a month. But I've kept in touch with her after that. And so, yeah, I'm pretty good friends with her.
Yeah. So she's now a postdoc working in our group.
That's okay. Yep. I was like, I know there's some connection there.
So anyway, great. That's the little geek out thing. You have to figure out who you know and what the connections
are. Good. We got the two of y'all connected when we didn't realize we were going to. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So bringing people together with birds for the past 4 years.
This is exactly what we do. Yeah, exactly.
We have a new tagline.
No, that's perfect. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Grace. Dr. McWilliams, we're going to pop back over to you. Will you tell us a little bit, tiny preview about what your talk is going to be next week? Because we have people who can register for the seminar. If you haven't already, we hope that this encourages you to sign up and listen to these two talk. But we just want to give people a little bit about what you're going to be talking about to maybe entice them to come join us.
Yeah, so the main thing that I want to have everybody understand by the time they finish listening to my talk is why understanding nutrition and physiology of migratory birds is important for their conservation and management. So I'll tell 4 stories. One's related to waterfowl. One's related to, well, 2 are related to waterfowl. One, Arctic nesting geese. The other is how we manage waterfowl in the lower 48 states, principally, and why nutrition and physiology is sort of underpinning how we do that. And then I'll talk a couple vignettes about songbirds, just to vary it up and make sure everybody understands sort of migratory birds at large and how nutrition and physiology affect their conservation.
Cool. I am really excited for this, and something that we've talked about. Actually, I was looking back through when I was doing my annual reports. Our very first cup chats were about feeders and different types of bird feeders and how to, feed birds responsibly. And I think that's something that so many people are interested in. So many people have backyard bird feeders, but probably haven't stopped to think about, the nutrition side of things. You might think about, oh, this is my, these are the bird's favorite food, that they come into. But thinking about how important it is, just like for us to get proper nutrition. It's the same for birds, except, you know, when I listened to your talk at TWS, something that really stood out to me is that birds that are migrating, they're athletes, you know, so it's not just like thinking about, oh, what do I need to get through my day, you know, a cup of coffee, it's okay if I grab a donut or whatever. Like we're talking about birds that have to make these journeys and they have to be in top shape. And so it's fascinating to me what it takes for them to be able to make that journey.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you thought it was interesting. We've done a fair bit of research looking at specific kinds of foods that birds prefer to eat during migration, what's in those things and what their nutritional needs are and sort of how that matches up. I actually just started a collaboration with a seed company, well, a bird feeding company, I guess is a better way to say it, called Flying Colors. And they're interested in two things related to bird feeding. One is use organically sourced, local sourced seeds, because it's a pretty big industry, and the kinds of seeds we often feed birds, especially if you're getting them at big box stores, are coming from all over the place. So they're interested in sort of matching what a lot of people are interested in doing with their own foods and getting something that's more locally sourced and organic, but applying that to bird feeding. And then secondly, trying to understand how we can better match what we feed birds to their nutritional requirements, and especially coming up with seed mixes that are more appropriate for birds in migration.
That's so cool. I think, and I'm so excited. I have never, everyone knows out there, I'm not always the lover of the science talks, but I am so excited about your talk because I think that understanding the principles behind supplemental feeding and bird nutrition makes you a better feeder. And we talk about that a lot in the livestock world, about understanding what you're feeding. Because if I understood why I put out oranges for my Orioles, I would understand why that's so important versus saying you could just eat the bird seed.
Right.
You know, understanding those different principles, I think, is going to be so enlightening for those who do supplemental feed and provide feed sources for their birds.
So, Emily, why do you give oranges to your Orioles?
I don't know, because they told me to.
It's simple.
But they found the Orioles or something found my oranges just the other day when I put up more orange feeders.
Yeah, I'm struggling with a raccoon right now that likes to eat the same things that I'm trying to feed the birds. But the orange thing is a really simple, cool story. There are compounds called carotenoids that give oranges their orange color, and birds can't produce those themselves. They actually have to get them from the environment. So you wouldn't have orange Orioles if you didn't have carotenoids that they could get in their diet. So that's why they find them so appealing. The males are trying to acquire those in the environment, and when you give it to them, they gladly take it and put it directly into their feather coloring, which makes them much more sexy, by the way.
It's true.
Yeah.
It is.
And we were going to have a chat about sexy birds too. Maybe we'll have to have Dr. McWilliams come back to talk about that. But it's kind of funny. You go orange bird and it's eating the oranges, and those things are actually tied together. So that's funny.
We can connect this to Jackie's work too, because so one of the things that we've done is, I've just told you why carotenoids are important for bird coloration, but it turns out that those same carotenoids are antioxidants that allow birds to deal with the stress of migration. And that's more in line with the kinds of things that Jackie studies too.
Yeah, so Dr. Grace, go ahead and give us a preview of your talk next, because this is also super fascinating to me, is how stress, like you said, especially early in life, you know, we know that this happens with people, right? Like if you are in a stressful environment when you're growing up, that can impact you later on. Same thing can happen for birds. But I know then also your talk, just share with us what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, so now I'm going to add more about that into my talk. Yeah, so what I'm planning on talking about is how birds can be used as indicators of ecological health. So how we can look at the health of birds and infer from that what the health of the environment is that they're in. And sorry, my daughter's chiming in a lot. Yeah, so I was going to talk about a couple of different projects that I'm involved in. one that is a kind of early life effect, but we actually haven't solved the mystery yet, but I think it's interesting. So skimmers down in Galveston have been having this issue where chicks are every couple of years, chicks will start growing weird plumage. So their feathers will grow in and they'll twist, and on the wings they'll twist and then the feathers fall off. And it seems to be lethal. The birds can't fly after that. And even if you take them to a rehabber, they end up dying. So we're starting a project this summer to try to figure out what's going on here, what's causing this in the chicks, and then also hoping to connect it to potentially contaminants in Galveston, or other issues that could be going on in Galveston Bay. So that, and then also out in West Texas, we have a couple of studies looking at avian malaria. So I'm going to be touching on that and some of the passerine studies, the songbird studies that we're working on in Texas in general, trying to get baseline health measures for birds in Texas so that when we have an event, like if there's an oil spill or some natural disaster like hurricanes, we can then go in afterwards and take samples from the birds and have some idea of what their baseline was before this event occurs, so we can see how did this event affect them in the future. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was planning on talking about, but I love talking about developmental effects too, and a lot of my work has focused on how stressors early in life will affect adults later in life, and it is one of my favorite things. So if people want to talk about that, I can talk about it too.
Well, we may have to go for another cup chat to talk about that.
That's right.
I was just going to say, I think what we have is that we need to have both of y'all come back for cup chats in the future. And we were talking about this before we turned on, but we would like to get, Dr. Grace is in Texas. She's on the other side of Texas, but she's here in Texas with us. And we hope to have her out in person at Birding the Border one year. And we would like to have Dr. McWilliams come down from Rhode Island one year. And so I think what we have decided just now is that both of y'all have plenty of interesting things to talk about that we can get y'all to give us more seminars on. So,
and the coolest thing, and I'm just going to point this out, not only do we have great speakers for our virtual birding seminars, but the awesome thing is if you are registered for our virtual birding seminars or you attend Birding the Border seminars in person, we are excited that Vortex has sponsored our birding seminars at Birding the Border this year again and have donated a wonderful prize. So if you register for virtual seminars or you're attending in person, you are going to get some chances to win a Vortex scope. And the specifics of the scope, of course, I would need to know that, but I don't have that in my brain.
And while Emily's talking about that, though, I want to mention real quick, too, something that we try to do is thank our sponsors for this. And so Vortex is one of those. Dr. McWilliams was talking about the Flying Colors bird feeding group or bird feeding company that is working on, organic food for birds. Wild Birds Unlimited is one of our sponsors that has helped us with getting our landowners started. And they are fantastic for just really, getting quality feed for our birds. So that's important. And then last of all, I will say Birds and Beans is our coffee sponsor. And we talked about them a little bit last week with Shade Grown Coffee. So Jackie's about to be not the only one with the little one on here. So just excuse me, y'all.
Well, actually, so the actual scope that we are going to be giving away to a participant is a Viper 65 millimeter spotting scope. And so we are thrilled and thankful that they have partnered. I'm excited, thank you to the Curvo store. And the cool thing is we are going to be directly talking, you will be out seeing some of our producers feeding locations, and then you will hear Dr. McWilliams talk about the importance or the difference between some of those options. I would like, when you speak, Dr. McWilliams, you have a foolproof answer as to how I can make the birds find my feeders faster, because I have put them up some great feeders and they like some of them, but it's just sometimes they don't find them all, and I'm just not sure.
Well, what's your hunch, not having seen exactly how you're laying them out? Because I have the same thing. I've got how many feeders? 1, 2. I've got about 8 feeders, and there's certainly some that I have to fill up a lot more quickly than others.
And that's the weird thing is, so on one of our properties, the duck pond, in one area, they are hitting the orange feeder hard. They love my oranges. And in the back half, they hate my oranges. And then in, they love my platform feeder and they love my cylinder fruit and nut feeder, but they're not eating my suet. And then on another property, they love my suet and hate my platform feeder. So they just need to make up their minds.
My hunch is you got a different group of birds at each of those places. And
That is
so it shows.
true. The habitats are greatly different.
Yeah, because the only birds that are feeding on suet now in my neck of the woods are the woodpeckers. Everybody else is eating on everything else because they're switching from feeding on high fat foods, which they need in the winter, to feeding on other things, with the exception being the woodpeckers. So yeah, my suet feeding, the amount of times I have to replace that is pretty minimal right now.
Well, it's just interesting how they can like one thing in one place and not in the other. But I got so excited the other day that they just loved my oranges because I was ready for them to love them.
And now you know why they love them. So we're good.
Because they need the orange.
All right. So everybody who watches us regularly knows that because this is what Emily and I do, we often chat for a long period of time. But Dr. Grace and Dr. McWilliams both have other jobs. So since it's 8 o'clock, I'm going to let them each do a little bit of a closing statement. Anything else that you want to share, or, about what you do, about what you're going to talk about something completely random, because as y'all are learning, that's what we do on here. And then we'll close out for the day, and Emily and I will just be so excited. There will not be a cup chat next week because Emily and I will be eyeball deep in getting everything ready for those of y'all who will be at Birding the Border in person. So Dr. Grace, I'll let you go first with your wiggly little one there. Anything else you want to share?
She is getting extremely wiggly. Let's see, closing statement. I think, it'll be a fun time. And what else do I have to say? I didn't mention I will talk a little bit about kind of community science and what normal citizens can do to kind of assist with some of these projects, looking at birds as indicators of ecological health. So if you're interested in that too, you should come to my talk.
All right, thanks.
We should all be practicing more how to hold a baby and try to keep your attention on things more. It'll be hard for me. I have 2 grandkids now that I enjoy in the same way though. I'm just looking forward to conveying some of the science behind what I think most people are aware of, this migration phenomenon, but telling you a little bit more about how that actually gets accomplished by birds. And look forward to your questions, your curiosities about the natural world, especially as they relate to migratory birds.
Don't worry, I'll make a list, Dr. McWilliams. I'll be ready.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. We're so excited. Again, if you're not already registered, the seminars given by Dr. McWilliams and Dr. Grace will be next Saturday. So not this Saturday, but that'll be May 1st from 2:30 to 4:30. If you're not able to attend, then we will be recording them. So if you register, you can get a link to watch after. It's just $10. That supports our youth birding programs and all the cool stuff that we do with Birding with Extension. So we hope that you will be able to join us.
And it's kind of like a raffle ticket anyways. I was thinking about this. If
True.
you register, you're entered to win. So it's somewhat like you're also buying a raffle ticket for supporting youth birds, win a scope, and you get to listen to 2 awesome speakers. So we're thrilled to be able to partner with Vortex to make that opportunity happen. So.
All right. Well, thank you both. See you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Next Saturday. Everyone have a wonderful week, and thank y'all so much for tuning in for Cup Chat today. Maureen, did we have they left. We have any other that's the first time we've had hosts or guests just
it works out though, because like I said, they both have other jobs.
And we could probably talk forever.
Yes.
anything else we need to talk about before next week? And we are so sorry that we're not going to be joining y'all on Cup Chat or for Cup Chat next week. We just don't know that we can handle. Here's what I really can't handle. A 7:30 wake up call on Wednesday, and then starting at my 4 a.m. wake up calls for the rest of the week.
Yeah, when we talk about birds and beans supporting our coffee bar, that means that because we have trips that are going out so early, and because we want everybody to get where they need to be at sunrise, and some of that's a 2-hour drive away, our coffee bar opens at 5 o'clock every morning. So that means if it's open at 5 o'clock, Emily and I have it ready starting from before then. So
excited. We'll miss everybody. And as promised, we will only talk about burning the border for 2 more weeks. And then we will quit discussing it. And we'll get back onto some hot topics or regular topics and kind of a regular format for Pep Chat. I think that's all I've got for the rest of the week. And
I think so too.
I'm so excited about Dr. McWilliams' talk. So I will say, I think that learning the premise behind supplemental feeding will be super interesting.
Well, I'm also excited for on Dr. Grace's talk that she mentioned at the end with community science, because so many people, why do they feed birds? Because they want to help birds. But community science can be so important. And her title, being the modern canary in the coal mine, is this idea that there's things happening that, wildlife are sometimes more sensitive to than us. And so if we pay attention to that, we can help, make changes earlier if we need to, or we can kind of help, just support those wildlife. And so I think her talk is very much going to be something. I think both talks are very much, you will learn something that then you can put into action. And so I'm excited to hear hers as well, so that people can say, okay, I didn't go to Birding the Border, but I can participate in the broader birding community with what I do, and I can contribute to community science and help, just help support our environment through this reporting. Right.
Sometimes we have seminars and they share information and about research that is interesting, but nothing, like you said, nothing that you could take and say, I learned this and now I can apply it here. And I think that's kind of the interesting piece of these presentations, especially being very high in academia. Dr. Grace, Dr. McWilliams, they're not just presentations about the science and what they've learned. It is truly about what they've learned and how we utilize that research, even in a backyard feeding method, or even in our in any kind of form or fashion. And so there will have the direct applications that everyone can take home versus listening to a study.
Yeah, I think so. All right, well, my own little one is getting wiggly. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. We're so excited for next week. We hope that if you can't be here in person, you'll join us for the webinars. And yeah, everybody have a great week. Migration is in full swing. We'll tie back into Dr. McWilliams' thing. This go bird.
Bunny yesterday.
Oh yeah.
I probably haven't been looking super hard because I've been a little busy. But I did see my first painted bunny.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
All right, everyone, have a great week. Thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully if we don't see you at Birding the Border in person, hopefully we see you online at our virtual birding seminar. So have a great night. Bye.